speak in English. Hindi is not my language in some sense. Um, so, lots of things he's covered, and I'm presuming you read more than journalists on most days. So, I try and plug a few holes in between. If I can, welcome to raise your hands if there are questions you want to ask or clarifications, or if you think we're going completely off track or saying things that you've already read, we can do it another way. So, a couple of things as compared to Venu, I remain a skeptic in the hope that I've proven wrong. So, I'll take a more skeptical line of what's happening. Couple of things we must remember. As he said, the economy was tanking or on the precipice of tanking when this entire episode happened. The few issues that you would have read about more publicly would be the fact that large industries are not able to pay back their NPA, are turning NPAs, not able to pay back their loans. There is a move to look at what is banking euphemism is called restructuring, which basically means, can I roll it over into the next quarter somehow? You don't pay me back when you're supposed to. Can you do it instead in the next 2 quarters or the year after? Or can you hive off some of it? Can the bank become an equity holder in the company, therefore the debt becomes equity, etc. All that's been happening in the last 2 years. It's pretty much failed. The one activity we didn't notice in the last 2 years was there was around 2 lakh crores worth of currency published and circulated in the economy in the last 2 years. This is starting September 2015 till in a year and a half. It was at a rate which is phenomenal. It's normally in a year on an average we publish and circulate currency roughly between 80,000 crores to a lakh crore. In just the last 9 months we produced a lakh crore alone. What is the nature of this currency, whether it's in 100 rupees, 500 rupees or 1000 rupees, we still do not know because the RBI data comes out annually on the levels. So the conversation that's happening so far amongst all journalists, and therefore the information you are suffering is slightly off, in the sense the data that everyone says there's only 15 and a half or 14 and a half lakh crores of these 500 and 1000 rupee notes, actually we don't know. Because the period between March 31st, 2016 and September or October till when this thing came about, there was roughly 1 lakh crore more money printed and circulated. We do not know in what denomination. There is a presumption that a large part of this was done in 100 rupee notes. There is a report written by the chief economist of the State Bank of India as far back as March 2016, which is even before this financial year begins, where he actually talks about demonetization. This is, if you remember, this is the chief economist of SBI, the biggest PSB, which roughly manages around 25% of the entire volume of money and credit going around. In March 2016, he writes in his public report saying, I am noticing money in rural India is turning into 100 rupees, the 500 and 1000 rupee notes are disappearing. It is the precursor to demonetization. 500 and 1000 rupee notes will be taken out. It's funny that all of us missed it as well. So you can obviously blame us for being idiots. A chief economist of SBI, a typical role of a chief economist in a bank is that he's not part of the business of the bank. He's supposed to be one of these think tank academics sitting there. Therefore, he doesn't do all the wheeling dealing. Most often they'll keep quiet. This guy seems to be an oddball, has actually started blowing the whistle on it slightly. Somewhere in May, he wrote saying, it seems demonetization is coming. We hear stories of people hoarding gold. Again, you can blame us idiots, we missed it entirely. Somewhere in November, just after demonetization, he brought out yet another report which his own chairperson disregarded and said, I don't talk to him. And this is again on record, where the chief economist says demonetization is happening. Roughly now, we are looking at about 2.5 lakh crore worth of money coming in. And we'll go back into this argument that Venu was putting before you of how does government take over money that gets burnt? If I burn my 500 rupees, how can government claim it as its pocket money? There's a method to it, and there's an intelligent method to it. Yet this guy's been saying it for 6 months. Brings you back to a couple of questions which we've also been bothered about and asking. And with the caveat, and I must say, and I'm discovering this as we research and understand, that financially, if all the sectors that you look of the economy and society, the one which is the most opaque across the board, and I've worked in areas starting from how tigers fornicate in jungles to what happens in urban life, frankly, there's no such system as opaque as the banking system. It is absolutely point blank closed to scrutiny from anyone else except the banking community itself. And you understand, if I am part of the banking community, I have no stake in opening and bringing sunshine to it. To give you an example, while we've all praised the previous RBI governor as being, whatever, the fact is he was the first one to go to Supreme Court and say RBI functions cannot fall under RTI Act. This is the most liberal RBI governor we've had in a while, the most outspoken character. He's the one who presented an affidavit to the court saying, I will not disclose data on whose NPAs are standing, even as the farmers who offload their loans, their lists are put up in each Gram Panchayat. As we know, anyone of you who's lived in a village will know if you default for more than 6 months on your village loans, which are given against your tractors or even your bulls or lands or lack of land or farming equipment, your names and photos are put up on the banking board to say this guy is defaulted, and this is so lovely. Thank you. So, in that opaqueness, most of us have functioned as, again, I'm not a financial journalist. A lot of them who know banking very well are actually consultants with banks. So if you read a lot of business papers, people who write on banks most often are consultants with banks. It's simply because that's the only way you get to know the innards of the system. But unfortunately, when you know the innards of the system, you become the innard also. So you will not find information as simple as saying every quarter, every bank fudges its numbers. How does it do it? Every quarter, there's a target for each bank to say how much lending it has done, how much deposit it has done. Every quarter, and if you talk to a banker on an average conversation, he'll say it's called window dressing. It's a very nice term. What they do is they lend out money to you on a 7-day credit, and as the quarter ends, so say it's September 31st, as the quarter ends, on 4th of October, take that money back. So now for the companies, they've shown we took credit, we are doing business, therefore in the GDP numbers, you'll see really great growth, but no jobs. On the other hand, the banks are saying we are doing very well. Last quarter we put out 3 lakh crores of credit. Now, to come back to why this is relevant, is in the month of September, and I'm kind of breaching my own code because we're supposed to writing this out in a couple of days. In the month of September 16th to September 30th, there was a phenomenal growth of term deposits, or what we call fixed deposits. It was to the tune of 3 lakh crores. To give you a sense of why this is big, the last highest jump we've ever seen was 1.5 lakh crores. Imagine this is deposits, fixed deposits being made at a time when our economy is tanking. At the same time, there was a credit given to companies, again worth 3 lakh crores, at a time when no company is taking any money. We've all been hearing about how corporates don't have money, they can't borrow anymore because they haven't repaid the earlier loans, yada yada yada. Suddenly in one 15-day period, you find 3 lakh crores worth of money being lent out. To give you another sense of how much 3 lakh crores means, is roughly 8 years budget for Manrega, given out in 15 days, supposedly to someone as a banking transaction. And then, out of these 3 lakh crores worth of fixed deposits made, in the next fortnight, 1.5 lakh crores disappear. They just fall off on the balance sheet or the data that RBI shows, because you and I can't access saying who borrowed it. This is a fiduciary relationship between the bank and the client. You can't ask the bank who they pay, who they get money from. So all you get is these macro data numbers. In between October 2 and October 16, 1.5 lakh crores worth of FDs are dissolved. Somebody takes the money out. Normally there's a simple transaction. You would imagine when you make an FD, if you get extra money out of doing whatever, you'll take from your saving account, you'll put it in an FD, or you tell the bank, iska 1 साल का FD बना दो. You would imagine that when the FD matures, the money would come back into your saving accounts, right? You'll see that money reflected back with a little amount of interest. In the banking transaction for those 15 days, that 1.5 lakh crores is not showing anywhere else. It does not show in anyone's saving accounts. It does not show in anyone's current accounts. There are several ways it could be dealt with. There are possibilities of how it could go. One of them could be somebody took it out as dollars. Another could be somebody took it out as pure gold, if nothing else. 3 could be I could have made a virtual transaction saying divest this, invest this in mutual funds. A lot of possibilities exist. Since November 12th, roughly 7 officials at different levels, starting with the finance minister all the way down to managers of different banks, private and public, have tried to explain these deposits and the disappearing gold, the disappearing fixed deposits. The most fantastic one came from the finance minister himself, who said this was the spike that we saw came out of the fact that there was at that same time 7th pay commission money areas given to the citizens, which just turned out was nothing more than 37,000 crores actually. Also the fact that you don't pay if people's areas as FDs, you put it in their saving accounts, people decide what to do with it. There have been others subsequently who followed this up. Why again this is relevant is if you look around November 12th, 11th if I'm not mistaken, the RBI comes up with this thing called I'm imposing a CRR. I don't know if you guys know this nonsensical term. It simply means you have too much liquidity, we need to take some of it out of your system, what they call extinguish, stubble, etc. etc. He says, the RBI says it, the government notifies it and says this is being done to make sure that the liquidity created out of the demonetization period is sucked out, because right now we do not like that much lending to happen. Because only if you have money will you lend against it. So if the banks don't have money, you will not lend. Except, again, all of us idiots initially forget to read the notification which says it works retrospectively from when? From September 16th. Now September 16th is the same date when you had these 3 lakh crores of deposits created. The CRR actually gets extinguished on November 11th. It does not even cover the period of demonetization, while it's been sold as the period being covered. There can be several alleged reasons for that. Let me come back to again from this, and these are I'm just leaving you with things that I think will flare up in coming weeks. You shall hear more questions, answers being floated one way or the other, and none of us will be wiser simply because of fiduciary relationships between the banks, and this has been ensured by the previous governor. Forget this one, we're not even talking of this one at the moment. Has ensured there shall not be transparency on these issues. There shall be no disclosure beyond the macro data that is available. Therefore, we are roughly gesticulating in open air like us today. The two things which you must understand what a note is. When a currency comes out, again Venu referred to that in some detail. How does a note get published? And these small things I think will make a lot of difference in the long run rather than a lot of conversations that we as journalists are having these days. A note is created in 2 legal ways. There are 2 legal steps before a note is circulated. One is called creating a banknote. So just if you publish a note, it does not mean it's a banknote. The RBI governor says this is my liability. When I give you this note, I am held liable for paying equivalent value to you. When the RBI governor says that, it's called a banknote. The second step is when you call it a legal tender, right? It's when it's called a legal tender. This is when the government of India also stands behind it and stands as a guarantor and says, I am certifying this, therefore it becomes legal tender. What has the government done so far? It has removed the status of this notes of 500 and 1000 rupees as legal tender, which means the bank is still liable for it, the government of India is not. Which means, as long as the money exists anywhere, whether I've burnt it, whether I've deposited it back, legally and technically, if I took that even burnt up money back to the bank, RBI, and said, pay me equal value, the bank is obliged to pay me those 500 or 1000 rupees. You can't do it obviously because you'll never get to enter RBI, but if you could take this money back. It is only when the banknote status of this note is extinguished, burnt, done away with, does the liability of RBI against these notes end. Now obviously when they create, I don't know how many of you know accounting, but if you create a liability on the other side, RBI on its books creates an equivalent asset, which in these things are called securities. We'll not get into what they mean, but basically there's a value that they can pass on against it. Now the moment this liability is extinguished, so roughly if I measure, and this is what Venu was talking about, the government assessed that around 3 lakh crores worth of money people will burn instead of paying it back, worried about income tax coming after them. If this money gets back, doesn't come back, there'll be a liability created of 3 lakh crores which can be burned, and against that these assets which are sitting on the RBI's books will be transferred off to the government as assets against which it can do a lot of things. As Venu was saying, some fiscal giveaway. It can say, let's make food security free, maybe I'll give 10,000 rupees in everyone's pocket, etc., etc. So far, only the first step has happened, where the legal tender status is done away with, which can be done away with a notification. So I think the legal challenge to it doesn't exist. Ethical challenges, obviously, we all are aware of. The second part of it, extinguishing the banknote status, requires a law or an amendment to a law. Has it been done previously? Yes. In 76, 78? 78, we did the same thing. Except at that time, the government was slightly foolish. It took the both steps through a law. And it did it through an ordinance. And then later ratified it. The current government will have to do that ordinance or law subsequently to extinguish that. Now,
at that time, it was less than 3% of the total currency, as opposed to 86%. So you see the magnitude, the scale of magnitude.
So now we've got this situation where the government potentially thought. So let's look at the ideal of what the government perhaps thought, was that if we can do this with a little bit of pain, as they call little bit of inconvenience to you and I, it will actually get a windfall of 3 lakh crores, I would presume, just before UP elections. It would also do this ideally, and my sense is that this was supposed to happen somewhere around January. If it happened in January, just the scenario that we play out, and this is hearsay, speaking with friends in government, etc., and politicians, if it happened in January, the chances for the other political parties to clean their money would be far less. They are cleaning the money at the moment, we all know. But the time period that they would get to react to this would be far less. The chances of BJP being perhaps more comfortable with its resources would be more explicit. It was also with the caveat that the government, and this has come out in various forums as chit-chat, the government actually, to begin with, believed that this entire episode of printing money could be done in 7 days. There is again anecdotal information from officers, some really deep banking correspondence on this, of why this mistake was made, is, how would I say, numeral illiteracy that we all have, including all of us who write on finance. Is in an Indian system, rupees we write as crores. So if you read any newspaper, it'll say rupees and crores, but if you're counting the number of rupees, we say million and billion. So apparently the story goes that when they were calculating how much time it takes to print, and therefore what, etc., they mixed up their crores and their billions.
Oh my god.
And they did it as 7 days. Now there is a think tank which was asked to do the similar study informally, which did it and counted 70 days. So there was a missing zero in that episode. So this friend who went back and checked with them and saying, how, and they were very confident. The 7-day theory came out pretty, the first briefings off record we got was 7 days it'll happen.
7 day bola tha na?
First day was 7, and this was like specific. So the chap who was doing the study outside informally said, it seems to be there's something like technically wrong, because we've got 70, they've got 7, it's not like 23 and 19 which have no relation. So he went back to friends, checked with them, and yes, they had made that silly mistake of missing their billions with their crores. There was another small thing that they missed, is this number of days was the time taken to print even under those whatever calculations they had. There's the other small thing that you have to do, is you have to send this money. You have to send this money to chess that RBI holds across the country. In some regions, the chess, say for the entire region of Northeast, there's only one chess placed in Guwahati. Roughly there are only 2,500 chest vans that can move the money around, because it's a privately organized system. Then they obviously also forgot, which we've all laughed and talked about, is the size of the money itself. The fact that we had this note that didn't fit into the ATM machine. Even when they realized that, they kind of forgot that the number of engineers they had to actually recalibrate the machines, because you don't do the recalibration every day, right? You do it once you bring the machine, set it up, you don't need to change that. They only had around 50 engineers across the country. So the people who were actually doing the recalibration were the chief deposit officers, who were on phones back to their banks, talking to the engineers, figuring out how to do, which is why it's taking more time than what was predicted. Because we don't have these engineers. You can't keep these engineers are costly. They charge roughly around $1.5 lakh to each private company. Why would you keep them on your rolls for 10 years? Because you're not going to use them anymore. So there was no use keeping them. Companies didn't keep them. all these logistical things aside, I mean, if you look at this, if you look at from their scheme of things, if this had happened in 7 days, or let's say even 25 days, really politically it's not such a problematic episode. You and I might feel as academics, as people who write on it, that it's a big deal. But if you talk about an average citizen who goes to AIIMS and lies outside that hospital for a month to get his treatment or her treatment, really standing in a queue for 3-4 days is not going to be a big deal. Frankly, I don't think it hits them so bad because they're used to it. It's just a slight amount of number of elite like us who feel a bit of sufferance in this. If it had worked to that point, what would have been the advantages that possibly could have accrued to the government? One, for a small amount of, and it would have been relatively speaking, a small amount of pain. If you could infuse money within 25 days and not the period is taking, a small amount of pain running over into about 2 months into your economy, you would have ensured that the face of the Prime Minister reaches every village at public cost without a single advertisement, which it has happened. Is the single biggest PR job where the political leadership of this country has reached every possible village in the country without using a penny of its party. It's used the public system, it's reached out, is perhaps the most ingenious idea after a long while. It's really brilliant if you imagine it. Every village is talking of it. The pain is increasing. If the pain doesn't increase, they would have all said at least he tried to do something nice. Maybe it didn't work out, etc. If it had, and he did get this 3 lakh crores, it would be a windfall for the system that it could be able to distribute. And frankly, what Venu is saying, the Robin Hood idea really sells well. You and I might not like the idea ideologically, but the fact is, if anyone gets 20,000 rupees in their pocket, there's a good chance he or she will say, well, how does the politically play? This guy sucked the money out of the big guys, he gave us money. How else does it happen? This is the best, simplest form of politics in some sense. This is how it plays at mass scale. I could come up and say, no, only 4% of money is held as cash, rest is all black assets held in property. It wouldn't matter. The fact is, even this has not been done before, if it had happened. Now it is falling apart, as Venu was explaining in complete detail. Its impacts across economy in different segments, I believe, are very different. There are certain segments which are not hit so bad. Depends on your agrarian cycle. So if you went east, the kharif crop comes up very late over there, unlike in northern India. Therefore, they are unable to sell their things, which is why you see Mamta screaming a lot more than you hear chief ministers of northern states talk about it. The kharif is not being sold, therefore they're not even going in for sowing. The sowing levels in eastern UP, Bihar, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, Odisha are much lower than rest of the parts of the country. Except, again, in the larger system, that will not reflect because most of the food procurement that happens by the government happens in Haryana, Punjab and UP and Madhya Pradesh, not in these states. So again, the government overall picture could remain happy, just as it's happy when you have regional droughts across places. You know, when droughts happen in Maharashtra, the central government doesn't suffer anything. It's because it's one pocket you can manage with the food crop that you get from the rest of the areas. How does it play out now that we're coming to this thing? I think Venu's pretty explicitly explained again is the fact there will be a credit rollover. That will happen. The trouble with this is a lot of argument that will arise in the next fortnight because people are seeing that this is falling apart. So apologists for the system will come up with some excuses saying as an idea it was brilliant. As an execution it's failed. Now, sit back and think of it again. And some of us have also said it. I'm sure 2 weeks back I was saying the same, maybe as an idea, even if it doesn't produce anything of what they want to achieve, it wasn't so bad either. The fact is, it is really bad even as a conceptual. As one, the fact that you're sucking out, as he said, 86% of the blood of the system, we don't even know whether it's 90% really considering the amount of money published in the last 1 year. And the system, as he was explaining, an economy is not like when you take out the blood, it's almost the same as a human body. You take out blood, you infuse back blood, the guy doesn't get up next morning and walk off. You have to feed him sandwiches even if you're taking off half a liter of blood for blood donation. You have to feed him sandwiches, make him lie for half an hour, then say get up and go on. The economy will suffer a similar thing. It is actually suffering a broken bone at the moment. To repair and calcify, it will take a long while simply because there were a lot of small businesses which were anyway teetering on trouble points. They were anyway unable to pay their loans, etc. and were laying off people slowly, which is why you were seeing a negative employment growth. these all guys will tip over very quickly. Now, if you remember the initial days, and again, a voice call if any one of you think we're going offline track.
No, it's making sense.
Initial days, you remember the government kept on saying, this money will come back, we'll have more money to give to people on loans, the interest rates will go down, this eventually will be good for the economy. My suggestion to you is that it will not be. Who are you taking the money away from when you do this? Because it's 86% of the economy and about 70% of your working class. When you take away money from these are the people who don't get loans in the first place from the banking system. This is why they go to informal lending systems. These are the people you claim you will give loans to. You could give them loans if they had land in the first place, if they had assets to mortgage in the first place. If they had it, bloody well, they are all as intelligent as anyone else. They would have also gone to the banking system without waiting for you. The fact is, most people in rural India will not get loans because they don't have lands. You cannot expect that tomorrow morning lending rate down, up, whatever, that they will get loans. The only reason they'll get loans is from the local Mahajan, etc. because there's a community insurance against that. Is because you can beat him up or beat her up.
Yeah, they're getting pushed into back to local markets.
So now you sucked out their money and the new credit cycle after the new crop is coming. You believe the banks will give them loans, and then suddenly the bank is also today, as he was saying, RBI is also saying, no, the lending rates are not going down anymore. So even the formal sector is not getting any reprieve at the moment. Forget the informal sector. You've sucked out 70% of the economy out of the informal sector, saying in 6 months' time we'll give you cheap loans. These are the workers who never get loans to begin with. Housewives don't get loans. Again, the property is not in the name of the housewife, the daughter, etc. Therefore, you don't get loans. I find in that a complete idiocy in some sense of how you see the economy. Again, this is conjecture, and I might be completely off my knockers when I say this. How would a political system make this mistake? Because I would believe, if not the bureaucrats, a politician is the best place to understand what really happens on ground. I don't think bureaucrats are. Politicians really smell the ground far faster than all of us put together. How would you make that mistake? Perhaps one way to see it, and I do see that as maybe a 5% play in it, is the fact Gujarat is a very different economy. The nature of banking there is very high. The nature of how distribution of wealth is done, except for the tribal belts, etc., is very different from the rest of the country. The variation across the country, as Venu was saying, has not been taken into account. Now, at the juncture when these decisions were taken, again we must go back to the small logistics. Can I have 5 more minutes? Yeah. You must go back to the small logistics of how do you print a note. It takes several steps. One of it is very simple. You design a note. Designing a note roughly takes a year. Where do you get the paper from? You can either import or print it inside. Even the company that prints it in India has technology that's brought. There are only apparently 3 companies that are into printing technology across the world. There's stories circulating, again, complete rumors about how in certain African countries, these companies itself talk about counterfeit notes to create reselling their own technologies. So every 10 years, there's an upgrade of technologies in most economies. We were supposed to do one in 2015-16. We did not because we were still waiting for results of plastic money being circulated in a few districts as tests, of which results haven't come back. So roughly, if you look back, the process of saying I shall demonetize and therefore what I have to do would have started somewhere in March at the latest. It perhaps had started earlier than that. Which is why, if we come back and we join the dots, there is an SBI chief economist talking of this in March. Which also brings me back to the questions of let's not live with just our ideologies. The fact is, the governor in charge in RBI at that time was Mr. Rajan. It wasn't this fellow. Now this guy has his own levels of incompetence, which I think we haven't seen in a while. But not that the previous one was as clean either. The fact is, these things were discussed. It would not happen without the approval or discussion in RBI. RBI, on the other hand, if you went back and looked at it, is not just a bunch of bureaucrats. It has several independent directors sitting on the board. You look at these numbers and you look at these names, they are some of the best known people in the country in terms of economics, finance, business, industry, even NGOs. You have all these guys sitting who participated in these discussions and minutes, and do you get access to them? Nope. All minutes of RBI board meetings are not provided under. He suggests and recommends a demonetization under RBI Act 37, if I'm not mistaken. It is the central government which approves it. It is not mandatory upon the central government to approve something that the RBI recommends. Clearly, there's a process that has happened over a long while. Clearly, there are places where it's leaked out. Even if you didn't know all of this, I would just sit back and say, will the next elections see less money? I really do not believe that. If every political party will have enough, if not as much money, the fact is this entire episode was a farce. There are good reasons to know why it would be a farce anyway, so even if you put all these law, logistics, notifications, operational management nonsense aside, the fact is parties don't hold money in cash. Most often they hold it as IOUs. You get these IOUs out just before the events are happening. Any one of you is aspiring to be a politician in your future life, please take note. The fact is, you keep money as IOUs, you claim them when you require them. Some of these are done in kind, some of them are done in cash. Large parties, therefore, will not disclose and hate to disclose the money they get as below 20,000 rupees, which they're not required to under law. So if the biggest party in town, the cleanest party in town in some sense, wanted to do the biggest revolution in black money, all it had to do was, I will put up names of everyone who even gives me a rupee. That would ensure a cleaning down the line. That's how the system works. If that's not happened, instead we've had an amendment to the law where parties have allowed themselves, both Congress and BJP, including left keeping quiet, have allowed foreign funding to be provided to parties without any supervision, have ensured that there is no coverage of RTI for political parties. Clearly tells you why we are standing where we are standing, because a lot of opposition partly or completely is complicit in this act. Why do you see this nonsensical conversation from the opposition party saying, "Ha, dard ho raha hai logon ko"? I mean, that's not something you and I will not feel. You and I will feel the dard anyway. The fact that there is a larger episode happening which is scandalous and not being talked about questions the entire political system we have at the moment. Why is Congress so complicit in the act and not really screaming its hearts out? I would presume if BJP had done its job well, Congress would have wiped out at least a decent amount of its cash in hand. If it had, Congress should have been screaming because it would have come clean reluctantly. It should have come out and said, you know, this is horrendous, shouldn't happen to poor people. You've not seen Congress do that either. There is clearly a systematic approach to it. So I slightly disagree with Venu in the sense, I think a lot of it's achieved, what goals it wanted to achieve is not achieved, but a lot of it of what it wanted to achieve has also happened regardless. A cleansing of black money in some sense has happened. So one of the theories I have, and this is again a pure conjectural theory, is how would you clean money in this entire process? If I was a political party, I wanted to clean money, is I would make an FD of 1,000 rupees for 3 days. And I would break it down and I'll take it out in 100 rupees. All it needs is a banking system which is favorable to me. So I make a deposit of roughly, this is conspiratorial, but 50,000 crores and I take it out in 100 rupee notes over 15 days. It's out of the system. Now I have only 100 rupee notes. I don't have to give it to the banking system when demonetization happens. There are enough avenues therefore available to different people to use and cleanse their system. Something very simple. Buy up gold and keep. If a chief economist of SBI knows it in March, clearly so many other people know it. I mean, we were the only foolish journalists who didn't know it, obviously.
So people would have done that. They would have pushed it into gold and real estate.
You buy gold, you keep it, you put it out later. The only problem with gold is you know that gold prices will tank when demonetization happen. Are there more routes? So the only thing that a person with cash in his hand is really looking at is how to clean it at the lowest cost possible. You know, if you invest in property, you know property prices would tank after this. Therefore, maybe the discount I would get if I had 1,000 rupees, I'll end up with 600 rupees. If I bought gold for 1,000 rupees, I'll get 700 rupees. If I could do this banking trip, all I'm really paying is a 30% tax on income through income tax route. That also if I get scrutinized. If I can game the system well enough that I'm not even scrutinized for those FDs, I'm off. I'm paying 7 to 10% tax and I'm off. I've cleansed the system. Which is why you will not see, there's a systematic reason why you will not see really the big businessmen creating havoc about it. Because there are enough political, economic avenues in the system available to catch money as it comes or to refloat it or retender it in some ways. Again, which brings us back to how badly we use English. There is no such thing as black money, honestly. It's a floating term that all of us generated over term and we've lived with it. The fact is, as they say in Hindi, dhanda kala hai, paisa nahi. The same money can turn white and black every transaction. Money doesn't matter. I'll take it out. So tomorrow, if the banks open up their thing and say, well, you can take out everything, I'll take it up. The moment I pay a vegetable guy without taking a receipt, honestly, it's black money. Now you might say the black money bit is based on whether the guy has to pay taxes, whether the vegetable guy at the end of the day comes in a tax slab or not. If he does, it's black. I've actually contributed to it. Next time, if he buys vegetables and he gives a receipt, the same money is turned white. So actually, you're catching nothing. You're catching fish that doesn't exist in the water, really. The fish is all in the tub. The fish is what you stocked in the tub. Really, if you catch that, you've caught everything. So if you caught the gold, the property, and it is tedious work. It's not easy work because you'll shake a lot of people at the same time. It would shake up the political system. It would cause havoc. This one is not clearly causing any political havoc. If you went to Parliament and if you went to any of the galleries these days and you saw, after all the hangama, they're all sitting politely with each other, as they always do. There's really no havoc between and no enmity amongst people that, this party breached a standard code of हर चोर में जैसे code होता है कि इससे ज़्यादा नहीं करेंगे. So ideally you would think BJP's breached that code. It said, it's done something so appalling that no party wanted to do. You would feel pissed off with it. Nobody feels really pissed off with BJP at the moment if you look across the spectrum at all other political parties. Last sip and I'll end with last couple of sentences. Is what do you look forward to? And obviously, I'm saying this in a very negative term. There's no positivity to this. Is the fact, don't get fooled by the idea of what we as financial journalists or journalists write, that this is not working out. In a sense, if it doesn't work out, even at the worst, as Venu was saying, if the government gets back 90% of the money that was in circulation, unlike 70% that it was estimating, it is still getting a windfall of 75,000 crore rupees. Pretty handsome sum. Now that it's also imposed this black tax thing, he and I and a lot of people will believe, and I do believe, that it is going to create a stupid system of license Raj yet again, where inspectors are hunting for money out of people's pockets. The fact is, if the system is able to take out even 20,000 crores out of that process, and you remember we've taken out 60,000 crores roughly out of the last income disclosure scheme at 45% tax. This is 50% tax. So roughly, I'm presuming you can still take out 25,000. The government has still got a new fresh kitty of 1 lakh crore. What is it an equivalent of? Again, it is equivalent to the subsidy that is given under the National Food Security Act for subsidized food. The government is still capable of acting Robin Hood, maybe not as large size of cutout that you would find in Tamil Nadu, but even the size of cutout that you will find in UP at least. It can still politically sell. It can still work politically even as the economy tanks. We must, even as we believe, and I do, that this is a really stupid idea. Stupid in the sense that it will cause a lot of hurt because one, it was a stupid idea, two, it's been done so badly that people should have lost their jobs and political classes should have lost their jobs, not bureaucrats alone, is the fact it can still politically work. Because as Venu was saying, the process of this is not the money, it is the mobilization it causes. It is when he reaches every house to say, I'm there for you. It is when nothing else works. Now what is demolished in this entire process is the trust in the banking system has been demolished. Who do you have trust in? The only epitome of power and responsibility at the moment is the government. You might like it or dislike it. The fact is, you've all seen the banks now work at the whim and fancy of the central government. You all believe it is government that you have to hear to understand what the banks will do, not the RBI. Even the notion of separation between the bank and the government, which was roughly like the state and the church, is now done away with. Therefore, everyone believes my baap ek hai. It really works. You might think it's bad and I might believe it's bad for democracy. In a small sense, if that my baap actually gives you 5,000 rupees in your pocket or free food, again, there is a proposal if you look, and we all miss these small nuggets that come out. The food minister around 10 days ago talked about a proposal of making NFSA, the subsidized food, free of cost for everyone. So no 3 to 1 rupees, even free. That's roughly 1 lakh crores every year. this government could do it straight off with this money if it gets. It does work. How do you stand against this and argue logically against this? I would say maybe we fail. We don't know. Maybe it doesn't make sense. Maybe politically the party does come out winning this one. The challenge is that once the party has done something, a mobilization of this level, it will have to do something bigger than this the next step.
It's riding
It
a tiger.
It can't step down anymore. There has to be a bang every quarter. There has to be a big bang story coming out. So we started from Swachh Bharat, which was again the same nonsense in some sense. You know, each one of you is responsible for cleaning your back doors. We'll not provide you nalas and sewage systems. As civic responsibility, all of you shall mop up things. It was passing on responsibility to you, which even this thing does. It passes the responsibility of cleansing the system to you by standing in queues. It's relatively a very minor thing to ask if you're asking somebody to cleanse the system. You're just saying line mein 3 ghante khade ho jaiye. It's ended up being 3 weeks, that's another thing. Now, therefore, consequently, the government will and this party will have to, I believe, and hopefully I'm wrong, will have to up the ante in coming 2 years. It will have to play a bigger and bigger game. It will have to keep people mobilized. It's a state of mobilization, it's a state of belief that you're doing something selfless. Now, for a lot of us, it doesn't matter, but for an average citizen, I think it really does make a difference to his or her mental capacity of how we are contributing. It allows a certain degree of participation in the nation building project, whatever that nation building might be. It allows someone to say, you know, I stood there as everyone else, and look, 1 lakh crore of clean money came out of it. This is a certain contribution. I might know that this 1 lakh crore is peanuts compared to the world system, but frankly, most people don't even have a clue of what 1 lakh crore is. It's humongous. It really, in our lifetimes, an entire village spent over about 100 years would not have spent 1 lakh crore. So that's the imagination that a citizen is living with, and is suddenly forced to see this. I sound very skeptic. The only hope in some sense is, again, as Venu was saying, a nation is too broken in pieces. So again, I'll end with this example. Northeast is an amazing part because the scheduled tribes in Northeast are not taxed.
By the way, in Northeast, in Itanagar is only one bank. Somebody told me. That's true?
No, the 3 branches and 7 ATMs for the entire state.
But one bank, is it?
SBI, but HDFC is also there. So they're not taxed. But there's a high degree, in some states, there's a high degree of extortion, etc. happens. There are what we call underground groups, people who they call rebel groups over there, who collect monies officially. Even bureaucrats pay them through checks at times. People tend to keep this money in banks. All black money that is earned in the Northeast is actually kept in banks because it's the safest there. It is not taxed. No extortionists can reach it, can't reach under your pillow and take it out. So the one region which has been quite happy in that sense have been the politicians of Northeast. They're untouched by this. In fact, to the point that I have family there, some of my family called me and said, do you want to put some money here? Why don't you put it in my saving account? And like, maybe that's a good idea. There's so much variation in the country that an operation this large is bound to fall in pieces. It is bound to work in hunches, break down somewhere, face a fracture somewhere, face a hairline fracture somewhere. At the end, the narrative breaks down. And as the narrative breaks down, as Venu was saying before we came here, that this hyper-mobilization at some point will end. You will get tired. You cannot be at this heightened level. Your testosterone levels can't be high all the time. I mean, it will show. You look stupid. It will show. To each one, you look stupid. I mean, sorry to use the word, but if I'm on Viagra for 24 hours, I'll notice it. It's weird for me. It's similar. If you are on this hyperbole motion all the time without this enemy that you are fighting really existing, eventually you will see the enemy doesn't exist. Or that the system is not trying to actually fight that enemy. So in some sense, when you build this narrative, as he was saying, around Pakistan, etc., there is that enemy that neither wants to defeat. If you build this myth of black money, there is an imaginary black money in currency. Actually, it doesn't exist. It exists in all other forms. Now, how long can you do this? The question for us to ask, I think, is what is the next hyperventilation point that we reach? What is the next idea of mobilization that can come? And I must say, as Venu, I think we must admit that the current government is extremely innovative in creating these new things that a very decadent Congress has not been able to think of. They have done such innovation in politics that it will stand the test of time. You must not forget Indira Gandhi, who imposed emergency, is still in villages is called as Indra Amma. I've seen photographs of her in villages where governments haven't reached in 15 years. People still think she was a goddess. And this is the same Prime Minister who imposed not just an economic emergency like this, but a real political policing emergency. Political systems, I really believe, are capable of shifting stance. Are we capable of resisting a new normal being set which runs on Viagra? That's our test of time. Thank you.